There are topics that make even the most talkative and eloquent people tongue-tied. Think of the brilliant science professor capable of spellbinding whole lecture halls with his discourses on physics or astronomy, who, when asked to talk about his feelings, suddenly stammers and stutters. For all of us, there are some things that are easy to talk about. The words roll off our tongues. And there are other topics where the words sit heavily on those same tongues. We just can't get the words out. We stumble under our own awkwardness and anxiety. One topic that has this effect on many people, including church-going people, is the topic of faith, religion. Many of us find it difficult to talk about God. We find ourselves tongue-tied. We may be able to pronounce the words, "Yes, I am Catholic," when asked, but when asked further why we believe, words fail us. We can't quite express ourselves. And the words we do share seem awkward. They seem to miss the mark. And we walk away from these conversations feeling foolish. The truth is, all of us suffer from a kind of inborn speech impediment when it comes to talking about God, Christ, the church, the life of grace. And this brings us to the miracle we hear from St. Mark's Gospel. We hear Jesus opening the ears of a deaf man and loosening his tongue, for he has a speech impediment. The miracles of Jesus are never simply about alleviating some physical, medical burden, though they certainly did that. In the miracles of Jesus, we are meant to see signs of what he desires to do in us, in our souls. They are meant to be signs of the interior restoration he desires to work in us. And this miracle is no different. In this man who is hard of hearing, who has difficulty speaking, we are meant to see a reflection of ourselves. In his speech impediment, we are meant to recognize our own difficulty, sounding out the words of God, speaking about the gospel and our faith in it. The fact that this man with a speech impediment is deaf is meaningful. In medical terminology, there's a deep connection between hearing difficulties and speaking difficulties. We cannot pronounce, we cannot speak clearly what we have not first heard clearly. Any of you who have tried to speak a foreign language know this truth painfully well. When you can't catch the slight tonal differences in that language, you cannot speak with that clarity, and you mumble through the words. Jesus first has to open the man's ears to address his speaking problem. The rough mechanics of this miracle are meant to show us that the opening of our heart's ear to the Word of God is not a clean and neat operation. To open our ears to hear God's voice, God has to get up close and personal with us, perhaps uncomfortably so. We read that Jesus sticks his finger in the man's ears and spits and touches his tongue. Jesus invades this man so that he can hear, so that he might be opened. And Jesus must be let in to do the same for us if we are to hear his voice clearly. It's also no accident that Jesus takes this man away from the crowd in order to perform his miracle. Crowds are noisy. Their chattering can be deafening. And in the noise of our world, our crowded world, it's easy to miss that still voice of God that is constantly whispering to us. And in order to hear it, we have to let Jesus guide us away from the tumult, away from the distractions, to be alone with him. The crowd is also partially responsible for our speech impediment. It's fear of the crowd, it's fear of the disapproval of others that causes us to be sluggish in speaking about God. The crowd of our time tolerates some talk about God as long as it's vague and indefinite. But if we get too suspicious, we risk offending them. Again, this is why Jesus takes the man away from that crowd, to be alone with him, to reach him, to connect with him, and finally to open his soul to the Word of God. Jesus desires to work this miracle with each and every one of us. All of us suffer a deafness with respect to God's voice and a speech impediment with respect to sharing the words he whispers to us. Our tongues were made to sing the praises of God. There is no higher and better topic for our tongues to speak. It's why we were made. Jesus wants to open our ears and loosen our tongues to enjoy this freedom of speech, this clearness of hearing. He's inviting all of us to walk with him, away from the crowd, to be alone with him, so that he can reach us, open us, and make us new.